started. Yeah, our chamber report is coming from Anna.
Very brief. Troy asked me to share that he would love for the council, the mayor, and staff to join the chamber at their ribbon cutting for their new visitor center this Saturday, the 14th. He said the Alcorns will start at 12:45, and the ribbon cutting will start around 1 p.m. after the glockenspiel runs its course.
Okay, I knew that's where it was.
1 p.m. on Saturday the 14th.
Good way to celebrate the Valentine.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a presentation of a draft safety action plan, and Brantley, you're going to introduce. Oh, sorry. No, you should have seen. I'm going to be up first.
You're going to speak into this?
It'd be preferable if it is, we don't have to like get right into it. And you might want to test the liquor. Well, I'm just ruining everything. All right, hang on, sorry. I had it all. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Now maybe we'll get it. We got a chair. I might not be able to do it. There we go. Okay.
All right.
That'll work. Yeah, perfect. Fantastic.
Okay, everyone hear me?
No.
Right. Well, good evening, Mayor Florida, council members, and additional staff. I'm Kyle Curtis. I'm the project manager from Summits for the project that we'll be talking about tonight. So that would be the City of North Safe Streets and Roads for All program, which is known as SS4A. That's what the program has condensed it to. And the end deliverable of this was the Transportation Safety Action Plan. We call it TSAP. Other agencies may call it a safety action plan or just an action plan. But we prepared it, and we'll be presenting a summary of that tonight. You should have all received that for review before the meeting. So just a little introduction here. We've been working with Brantley from the city. Again, I'm Kyle Curtis, project manager from Summits, joined tonight by Michael Lapton, who's also from Summits, who did the transportation data crunching basically, and did a lot of detail analysis for the project. Brooklyn Holden from Firm Foundations Community Consulting. She did a community engagement effort for this project, which is very successful. We also had additional supporting consultant staff, city staff, and various community members, many of whom were on our task force, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So a little information about the program. It is a federally funded program through the U.S. Department of Transportation. The city received the SS4A grant, I think a couple years back at this point to go ahead, and it is a planning grant, so it's safety planning. So we went through some data and then produced the DSAT document, which evaluates the citywide transportation safety with the goal to develop comprehensive strategy to reach zero fatalities. So we'll see as we go through the data, but actually the city has very few fatalities. Very few killed or significantly injured is the term we use, fatalities. So kudos to the city for doing a good job, but we always make a little improvement. So that's what the plan aims to address. So during the presentation tonight, we'll be going over just the general TSAP approach, the city's Vision Zero goal, historical crash data, community engagement summary, selection of risk factors, safety improvement projects, and then next steps. So a little timeline of how the project works. Basically, we formed a Vision Zero task force, also known as the task force. Then we went ahead and reviewed watchdog crash data. So we got 5 years, and then at one point we got 10 years of crash data just to try and get a bigger data set since there were so few killed or significantly injured data points in the data set. Typically, you go through a 5-year crash data set. So 2019 to 2024. So it did include the COVID years, which is a bit of an anomaly, as you may suspect. Then that begins a period for the community engagement, which lasted basically early summer through early fall on this project. So first off, once we had the data, we analyzed, the data analyzed, and went ahead and analyzed the roadway network for common risk factors. We developed priority location projects based on those hotspot locations. We identified potential policy and process changes that the city can consider for implementation, which would help increase safety. And again, all of that, those last few steps were during the community engagement period. So getting a lot of community input as well to help inform our priority locations. Then we went ahead and developed the safety action plan, which you guys will be discussing tonight, and then eventually taking to a future council meeting for adoption, pending any review comments that you might have tonight. So what do we do with this document? So basically, there are additional funding sources in addition to the SS4A program. The program itself does have construction funding, which you can go for. There's also additional programs like Washita has a highway safety improvements program. They have a city safety program portion of that. That's actually due in about a month. So we're going to work with Brantley to select one of these projects and apply for that using the findings from this program, and hopefully get some funds for construction implementation of one of these projects. So the SS4A program has its construction fund, but there's also additional funds. So that's kind of the second last step there. And then the last one would be ongoing monitoring and progress reporting on the TSAP. So the city can review additional crash data as the years go by, post that to the website, and keep the community informed of how their project's progress is going.
Yeah, one of the SS4A requirements for cities is to have a Vision Zero goal. And the one we work with staff to develop for this project is to improve safety in the transportation system by working towards a goal of 0 deaths or serious injuries by the year 2035. We selected 2035 because it gives enough time for us to implement some of the strategies, get money to fund, design, and construct some of the improvement projects. So I felt about the right year, looking out about 9 years, to give us some time to implement some of the projects identified in this plan. Also felt it was practical and achievable based on the city's crash data, which we'll get into here shortly. So yeah, like Kyle mentioned, the analysis focused on 5 years of crash data from 2020 to 2024. The map here on the right shows the crash locations. The project looks at all the total crashes, non-injury, but it really does focus on the ones that are more serious and fatal crashes. These are the ones we really want to, if possible, derail from happening. We also looked at the city within the city, which is the orange line, and then also the urban growth boundary, which is the dotted yellow line. Yeah, in total, there were 36 injury crashes that occurred in the city of UGA and 142 total reported crashes. Some of the lesser crashes are obviously, they're not all reported out there. We worked with what we had. There were 28 injury crashes that occurred on US two. That makes up 78% of the injury crashes. That was a pretty key finding. And as you look at the map, you can see the blue dots are the minor injury crashes, and the yellow dots are the serious injury crashes, and the red dots are the fatal crashes. There were 2 serious injury crashes in the city limits here. Let's see this pointer. We had a serious injury crash coming into town on US two. We had a fatal bike vehicle crash just near the bridge over Wenatchee River. And up in the UGA area, we had another serious crash. They were technically included in analysis. We also looked at crashes just outside the city limits. For example, there was another fatal crash coming into town just outside the city, and a few other serious or injury crashes in the area. We just considered those, looked at the circumstances were to kind of consider into our analysis. We had 2 vehicle bike crashes. One I mentioned is a fatal crash, and there were no reported vehicle pedestrian crashes during the 5-year time period.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, please.
Is that rollover up there in the UGA on Spring Street, that's an ATV or so is that really pertinent to this study?
You know, there's definitely crashes that we have more ability to prevent. And that would be something that would be pretty challenging for something like that. You know, DUI, distracted driving, not that we can't have a program to do something about that. As far as physical improvement, some of those things are pretty tough to, yeah, so you're right. You know, it's in our analysis, but that's a pretty tough one to do much about physical improvements. Pie chart here shows a breakdown of the 36 injury crashes by type. The most prevalent one is rear end crashes, which made up 33%, followed by fixed object lane departure crashes at 19%, angle crashes 17%, and so on down into the smaller percentages. The chart here shows comparison of overall crashes, which are shown in the blue bar chart, and the injury crashes shown in yellow. These are both by percentages. So the yellow percentages, just look at the pie chart, those match exactly. What we're trying to show here is this helps you understand which crashes are more likely to result in injuries. So whenever the blue line is higher, yeah, please.
Sorry,
Yeah.
maybe this is, I'm the only one who has this question, but pretty sure I can understand what lane depart means, but when you say fixed object.
Sure. Yeah, they're tied together where you've left the travel roadway and hit a pole, a boulder.
Oh, got it,
into a
okay, I
ditch.
see,
So
right.
they're related.
You did fixed object, got it.
Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah, if anyone has any other questions on that crash type, some of them are fairly straightforward, but I'm happy to answer any of those. So the blue lines are the overall crashes, and then the yellow percentages are what we just saw in the pie chart. Those are injury crashes. What we're trying to demonstrate here is where overall crashes, where the blue line is higher, those are less likely to result in an injury. So a rear end crash is a little less, is one of the less dangerous ones. Angle crash, moving on down, side swipe, and then run into a parked car. Those are the crashes that are less likely to result in injury. Ones that are more dangerous crashes would be where the yellow line is higher than the blue line. For example, the one you just mentioned, the fixed object crashes, those can be pretty dangerous if you go off the road and hit an object. Head-on crashes, very, very dangerous crash. Other ones, bicycle vehicle crash, another very dangerous crashes. Vehicles or pedestrians and bicyclists, we consider vulnerable road users out there. When you're in a car, you obviously have a lot of protection around you compared to being on a bike or pedestrian, where you kind of have no buffer from the impact. So that data was all like looking in the past. And previously, that's mostly what we would have focused on, is just looking at the historical crash data and gone on the assumption that where crashes happened in the past, where this is most likely to happen in the future. But WashDOT and the USDOT have been doing methodology where we also look forward. So to do that, we look at risk factors. What are the common risk factors in play that are prevalent and where these injury crashes are happening. And so we broke that down into three levels. The first level is where these risk factors are present in 30 or more % of the injury crashes. So these include being on an arterial or the higher speed limits. Higher vehicle speeds are much more likely to result in injury crashes, just the force momentum behind the crash that happens. The second level 2 category is where the crashes or these risk factors are present in 20 to 30%. For example, being a traffic signal, 22% of the injury crashes occur at those locations. We definitely noticed the traffic signal is remarkable because there's only 3 traffic signals in the city, and those 3 were the highest intersection that was in the crashes out there. Looking at level 3, that's where the less than 20% of the crashes have these risk factors. For example, snow and ice on the road, 19% of the times that was present during the injury crashes. And I'll pass it off to Brooklyn for the public engagement.
So the community engagement process, one of the things that was really valuable about it was, as Michael mentioned, there wasn't as much data and historic crash information to really make a lot of inferences. And so we actually tried to make sure that the survey and our approach to outreach really provides augmentation information so that the high risk network could really be reflective of what people are experiencing. So it was really intentional about connecting with the data that we use and the structure that the data is set up with. So in order to do the outreach process, we did an existing data analysis, meaning we looked at previous efforts over the last 5 years of outreach related to transportation safety, land use, and any type of driver behavior, things within the safe systems approach that the SSPRI program uses. And that then informs our outreach so that we're not asking the same questions to your community that they've already answered. We've found through our research that information collected over the last 5 to 10 years is usually still pretty relevant. People's feelings and thoughts and opinions about their community doesn't change. So we want to build on what we've learned, what you guys have already learned. So that's what that first part is. And then using that information, we develop a community engagement plan, and we do that in cooperation with the rest of the team and the city to make sure that the approaches that we have for the community, the way that we'll be in the community, talking with them, presenting with them, asking information, seems appropriate for what your community tends to enjoy communicating with, like your block, like the block party that you guys have. We got to be a part of that, which is really great. So making sure we're incorporating your processes already. And then using the survey structure in a way that we can standardize all of our outreach. So making sure that the survey questions are able to then also be utilized in in-person events. So there's some questions in the survey that people got to budget and kind of prioritize. And we had activities during the in-person events that people actually got to do that same sort of in-person process. And because we were asking those same questions, we're able to collate all of that information, as well as having maps from the survey at events. Yeah, I don't have it. As well as having the maps from the survey actually on poster boards. So when people are interacting with the maps, I'm then able to take that same information, put it into the survey, and we can pull all of the collective GIS information out all in one collective swoop, rather than trying to make all these different types of apples and oranges compared together during the analysis. That's the data augmentation aspect. And then the outreach campaign was included outreach events. We also canvassed the downtown. We had a survey, we had flyers, and then we also did interviews. And then we also had a task force, which included representation from places like the Chamber, WashDOT, the school district, city staff, and we were able to also have that group review our process, review our data, review our recommendations, and the project list as well. And then we create a final outreach report, which was included in your opportunities for engagement, specifically in terms of the strategies that we used, that we gleaned from what seemed to work well and what was going to be effective in the process, was the task force, like I mentioned, the online survey, which is available in both English and Spanish, the community event, which included the farmers market, as well as the block party that you guys did at the school, interviews, and then again, canvassing downtown. And then just in terms of results, this is in the information that you guys got in your packet. But through all of that collectively, we had over 1,000 comments, which included both comments on the survey, because there's also an open-ended question that people could answer. The conversations that we got, comments, people were allowed to provide a lot of times during our in-person events, and they could just write down any thoughts they had around transportation safety. And then in the survey itself, people got to pick a pedestrian, a bike, a car, or a public transit bus, and actually move and drop it onto the map and say what they think needs to be improved in terms of safety. That's the process that was used to augment the WashDOT data for Michael's team to do the high-risk network. We had over 800 unique spots on that map. So for you guys being such a small town, we basically tripled the work that we've been doing at other county and city levels. We're usually around 150 to 300 responses with these map applications, and you guys had I think like 816 or something like that. So your community really showed up. I don't know if it was, I don't want to take all that credit. I really feel like you guys have built a strong engagement environment within Leavenworth. I think that really added.
Thanks, Brad.
Well, okay. I used what I learned. And then two things that just kind of stood out was that driving and walking were perceived as the most safe modes in the city. Cycling was actually at the lowest. So you saw based on the historical data that cycling can be a challenge within the city. And we also have some anecdotal information of people sharing that multiple people have been hit multiple times by vehicles in the city, but they've never reported it. So this was really valuable in seeing that anecdotal data. And then in terms of factors contributing to the most unsafe environments, kind of speaking to the question earlier, is speeding, distracted driving, and then just intersections. And this distracted driving one was interesting because it wasn't just like phone usage. It was also people just kind of looky-looey because you have a beautiful community, and then also not really knowing where to go, trying to find parking, trying to find their lodging, just sort of being in the moment and not really understanding what's the route they should be going. So one of the options to include that is just like wayfinding and information as well. We also had a really entertaining story that I think Kyle likes. A guy has gotten in 2 accidents, both times caused by him dropping an apple that he was eating and hitting somebody. So we also learned that there's some personal habits that the community has that maybe the apple, apple and emphasis of the community can be addressed maybe in some way. But yeah, so that's the kind of the highlights. You guys have the full report in your folder, and so hopefully I think that's my last slide. Yes. Yeah.
Question. So on the safety mode, the safety by travel mode, it looks like, I don't know what it's like in other places, but we were a pretty active community, a lot of bikers, and it looks like a big chunk of people don't use that mode of travel. Well, of the people that do, it's not actually a lot difference in the perception of safety between walking, or whether it's neutral or very unsafe. They look pretty close, maybe within 5%. Is that normal-ish, or do you find other communities people are more afraid of biking or less?
I'll be honest, the rural aspect of this region, when I think about just North Central Washington, makes walking actually usually more uncomfortable. I think a lot of the comments that we had when we were in actual conversation and dialogue with people was that the volume of people walking and the kind of almost forcing this like slower congestion traffic, and then having the pedestrian plaza, the pedestrian, multimodal lake kind of area, I think has added to the environment of feeling safer to walk in their community versus other areas, especially if we're looking at county. Nobody's ever felt safe walking on a county road. Counties don't really have a lot of pedestrian-based infrastructure. And then if we're also looking at places like Moses Lake or Wenatchee and East Wenatchee, we're also doing these plans. Similar feedback because of the high speeds and then the long roads, like if you're meeting Grant Road over in East Wenatchee or the highway that comes in Moses Lake, there's a lot of that infrastructure that exists that you guys just don't have that reflected here. So I think you guys actually have a higher rating of people feeling safe walking here than I've seen in the rest of the region.
Yeah, so from there, we developed high priority corridors throughout the city based on the 3 pieces of information, historical crash data, risk factors we talked about, and then also the very robust public outreach data that Brooklyn's group developed. So using those 3 sets of data, we developed the following priority corridors. First one is US 2. These are in order of priority. Chumstick Highway number 2, Ski Hill Drive, East Leavenworth Road, Evans Street, and then lastly, Commercial Street. So from there, we identified these corridors, and from there, we developed a set of improvement projects, which is really the important outcome of this whole effort, is to come up with a set of safety countermeasures and improvement projects to address safety on these corridors. Here you see the projects on the corridors. These are a variety of projects. Some of these might be intersection projects, could be a traffic signal or roundabout recommendation. Others could be constructing missing segments of non-motorized facilities, potentially missing segment of sidewalk or bike lane. We're adding a place for pedestrians to cross US 2. Other common treatments out there are traffic calming to get the speed down on these different facilities. Also, some of these things, all these projects focus on safety, but some of them have multiple benefits for improving mobility for other modes or maybe access to properties as well. And welcome any comments. We didn't want to include the whole list here tonight, but we're happy to talk about any of these projects or answer questions or talk about them. And we can pull up the list if you all want to. In addition to the projects on each of these corridors, we also identified 4 citywide systemic projects. These are typically lower cost projects at several locations throughout the city. The first one is focusing on arterials, looking for opportunities to maybe reduce driveway widths or tighten curb radii or consolidate driveways. Which all these could be a little bit of risk factors, primarily for walking, where your speeds can get a little bit higher if you've got a really soft radii where a vehicle can make a turn at 50 miles an hour, versus maybe if you tighten that up, the vehicle might have to go like 8-10 miles an hour or something like that, or just wider driveway widths, mean a pedestrian is exposed to a greater area. So just some of those could be evaluated at the arterials throughout the city. The second systemic project is constructing missing segments of sidewalk. In the plan, we identify some options for that. The third one is to develop an active transportation plan. So in this report, we do identify some opportunities to fill in some sidewalks and missing bike lanes, but this active transportation plan would give you a comprehensive vision of how to build out your whole non-motorized network, where might be some new sidewalks or trail connections. So getting a holistic opportunity to look at the city. The last one is just a very low cost, implementing some signage modifications. These are just kind of for consistency or staying present with like best practices.
Okay, so now that you've seen how we look at the data, talk to the community, talk to the city and various task force members, pulled all this together and have identified priority corridors and areas that should be pursue project funding to implement construction. What's next? So next steps are to develop a website to share the safety action plan with the community. Also identify funding sources, like I said, upcoming HSIP one and additional ones. City staff can evaluate potential policy and process changes, provide recommendations. So as Michael said, there's various programs that the city can take part in to aid in safety. And then periodic update of the website, like I said, based on additional crash data as it comes in, analyzing that using the metrics that we've developed here, and then identifying any other corridors. Also sharing with the community progress that's been made. You get additional funding, you do a project, share that with the community, and hopefully you see crash numbers go down in that area and safety go up. And that brings us through to the end of our presentation tonight. I want to take this opportunity to ask if you guys have any questions, if there's anything that we can clarify or revise in the report to make it suitable so that the council would adopt this in a future meeting.
So I had a question. Several of them. We've got some congestion. I don't know if you guys covered that. You covered injuries. Intersection Highway 2 by Marston Safeway. Do you guys look at that as far as congestion, or was this all just injury driven, sort of crashes driven?
This was safety focused.
Yes.
And that was one of our priority project areas. There's some across from Marston there, there's a missing sidewalk, there's a pedestrian push button and really no suitable pedestrian sidewalk to get to that. So that's one of the areas that we've identified as a priority project. But no, it was not focused on transportation efficiency. Sure.
Congestion safer, isn't it? For pedestrians.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So congestion can be, so, get the vehicle speeds down. And just to clarify a little bit of what Kyle said is while we didn't get develop a model and analyze pure traffic operations, we definitely know it's an issue and we did consider it. So for example, we go into the project list, we looked at potentially like a roundabout at Mountain Home Road, but it's so close to the signal. And having a signal and a roundabout together don't work very well. The signal releases up to 2 cars and a roundabout basically just does them one at a time. So having those, they're not very compatible together. So we did consider some of those things as we were developing our projects. So what we recommended those 2 locations is have those 2 intersection treatments match. So either around about one end, you probably want to replace the current signal with another roundabout because those 2 would work together. Or put a signal in at Mountain Home Road, and so those 2 signals could be coordinated. So we did definitely keep that in mind as we were working through the project.
Okay, so you're talking right before the bridge, East Leadwood Road, and then when you go up Mount Home. I think that's what
Yes,
you're
I think we're talking about the same spot. It's not going back, but I think we're at the same, where it's at. Yeah,
Go ahead, sorry.
yeah, basically, where East Leadwood Road comes in, that's, we were looking at, as a possible, a little difficult, turning left out of there during busy times.
Right.
So we're looking at a signal roundabout to help vehicles get out there. It also have dual benefit of, people walking out there, same thing, it's pretty tough to get across the street. So there's a couple benefits that signal or roundabout could have. But just in your mind, your comment on congestion, whatever we put here, we want to match these 2 to keep the traffic moving well through town.
So you've got Ellen who's got every single intersection, right? Marked for improvements.
Those are, I think those, if I remember right, those are just pretty low, like, curb, tighter curb radii, it's curb bulbs out there, just a little bit of traffic calming. Those aren't major improvements. Just a reminder, the full report, or the full project list is in the report. We can pull that up if you want.
I'm curious about, I'm not debating that having a tight turning radii can calm some traffic down and have you have to take them at slower speed. I am curious though, vehicles aren't getting any smaller nowadays. Some of these, and for instance, there's pretty tight turning radii on Pine Street, and there have been a couple of times I've seen some land yachts really maneuver to keep them trading paint out there because it's a tight turn. Have you ever seen instances where unintended consequences are poor drivers can create some fender benders that way?
Sure, yeah, so there's appropriate design treatments for different streets. So like US 2, we have some bigger vehicles out there. That's where we probably want to have some softer radii, just to accommodate those bigger vehicles. It's kind of a case by case basis. So they've got a bus route. Want to be, making sure the bus drivers will be able to get around. When you get into some of those smaller neighborhoods, that's where maybe there's opportunities to tighten it up, and you pick a design vehicle for that.
Did you guys load up? This won't take too long. So up on between North Road and Chumstick, where that new development is, Little Art or Whitener, we've got a reindeer farm there. We've got 680 units that are coming in. We've got all the traffic coming down the Chumstick from that plane. Did you guys look? I don't know if that was within your purview to take a look at that, because I see that coming. I think there's gonna be some real issues there. Part of it's the county, part of it we're supplying, we've allowed that to happen, so that's a concern of mine, is how that traffic is managed and safely.
Yeah, the city did provide us with their traffic impact analysis of that development, and we went out there, looked at operations. There's a bit of a sightline challenge out there. We recommending a roundabout at that location. I think it could have several benefits. It could make it easier to get in and out of, the side streets at that location. It would also serve as traffic calming for, people coming in from the north, maybe coming in at higher speeds. It could help them, going around the roundabout, they're probably gonna have to get down to like 15, 20 miles an hour to navigate. So it's a nice form of traffic calming. So yeah, with the roundabout at that location to possibly help, that driveway to that site.
Just also to add on to that, as far as the community involvement, that was mentioned multiple times by various people already. That was what we saw.
Yeah.
I mean, I live just down the street from there, and I've already seen 2 accidents at that intersection, so it's been.
I would think it'd be a concern.
Yeah.
It's-
The county's plan is that, that's the
County does have a plan, but.
Yeah.
It's
How
Well,
we just threw it on, right?
The county also did a Safe Streets and Essex Roy plan, and that ended up, because of the community engagement, becoming part of the network, and originally the data didn't show that, but the community had enough comments that intersection essentially from Pine up and even up to Chumstick showed up in their plan as well.
It's our understanding that the county will take lead on, has already come up with a preliminary design and cost estimate for a roundabout there, and is gonna take lead on that. And so this was one of our priority locations, so this plan would help support that if the city or if the county wanted the city to sponsor their plan for additional emphasis in the funding application process.
Great.
Couple of questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. It's good information. HSIP, is that a federal or state program?
That is federal money that comes through the state administered by WashDOT.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And in your experience, we've done priorities, so I have a passion for, stuff in like the second, third, and fourth, and even the seventh sidewalks. So in your experience, have you seen when we do applications for lower priorities, does that impact the successfulness of the grant as opposed to your priority one, just highway 2?
Yeah, you're busier, grant agencies have to
Yeah.
get a whole bunch of applications and sort through which ones they think are gonna have the most benefit to the community. So definitely like streets like US2, where your ped volumes are higher, where you've got a bunch of services and, going to transit, those things are all gonna score higher than some more kind of neighborhood streets. So it's all a competition, being near a school, really raises you up. So that those could get funded, but they will be less likely.
Thank you. And regarding priority 2, Chumstick Highway 2A, which you probably don't know about, but we have, I'm surprised we didn't see it, but we have a lot of residents, students living on North Road that come down to our school. And right now we've accomplished 2 major things on the North Road extension 2A. The bridge that's right there actually is designed for cantilever, pedestrian walkway over it or on the side of it. And correct. And so right just to the right of 2A is a small bridge. And the county, when we were working with the Commissioner Gaynor, made sure that that bridge would have cantilever structure so it could support pedestrian and bike. Convert also around the arch turn under the railroad bridge, we were successful to punch through underneath there, so the pedestrians, so the missing piece is from the trestle to the bridge, into the chopstick. So council, I would like to see that included in this plan, because we do have students and people coming down from North Road. Getting to the trestle, and going under, going the pedestrian that was created, and it goes right back on. So we're missing a piece on the North Road extension from Chumstick up to North Road.
So just want to make sure I understand. I know you're talking about
Sure.
the bridge.
So
We're
you're
starting to get outside the city.
well, right,
To the train station.
right.
Yeah.
But it's right away, it's up the North Road, going up so we have that as 2 pieces that are structurally, we're missing just the sidewalk that connects to the sidewalk to the, I don't want to say train station per se, but if that's the train station, it's more passengers, but then we have students and families living up on North Road that walk it. Yeah.
Okay. So it's getting outside the city, but yeah, maybe we can build it, we can look at least mentioning it in the report. We can put a little more thought into it. Yeah, so we did notice that. That'd be a nice, not a cheap sidewalk, but definitely a valuable sidewalk, can connect the train station and other people up in that area. But yeah, thank you for the comment. We'll look at adding that to the report.
Cool, thank you.
I will say, I know that the Chelan County one, access from the train station to downtown was one that we got a lot of comments on. I can double check and then just send it to Brantley if that ended up being something that was highlighted. I don't remember off the top of my head.
That'd be great, thanks, appreciate it.
Because Rob, you're talking from the trestle down to the bridge.
Correct, yeah, and you know, like, we're, you know, we've gone, I know it's not in the city, but I mean.
But it's, yeah,
Our city, you know, our community, our members that are living up there and they're walking into town and something, and their students are going. So that whole area is being activated, whether it's the new 680 and also North Road. They're still,
yeah, especially if you have winter conditions.
right.
All that stuff.
So I would love to see if that is consensus.
Yeah, I just think
That might be reference it in ours to the county, even though it's out of ours, that'd be a good synergy that we could help support each other. Exactly. Thanks for looking at that. Appreciate it.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Appreciate it. Good, yeah. We can get some action on it. So.
Yeah. Excellent, people. Thank you for your time, everyone, tonight. Thank you very much.
Nice work, guys.
Thank you. Going to move this in more. I should.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to draw stuff. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say that.
It's not right. It's
So I have a little extra time.
Yeah.
So what I brought before you tonight are some changes based on the feedback I got at the last council study session. I put a copy of kind of some of the notes I took while we were discussing it last time, and then have a fresh copy with red lines in your packet based on that feedback, and just kind of changing some of the wording so it flowed better and was clear to understand. I'm sure there's still work to be done, but I'm hoping to get feedback on this current proposal so that we could move forward with a hearing. It doesn't have to be perfect tonight, and even at a hearing, that's where we get input and can still make changes up until ordinance. So just so you know, tonight, I'm hoping to get enough so that you feel comfortable moving this forward to a public hearing. For that we've addressed most of your concerns, and then we can hear from the public, address any concerns there, and then move it forward to ordinance. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look through it and have questions, or if you want me to go over it. In this, the blue is, it looks like I had to retype it because it wouldn't track changes correctly with my old track changes. So this is based on the current code. So this would be, the purpose statement is a new section in the code. So anything blue is new to the existing code, or the existing code. Anything green is just kind of moved around, and then red is removed. So I did move that purpose statement up to the beginning, as we discussed in the last meeting. And then added an applicability section that included kind of the additions to new structures on existing developed lots. That might still need some wordsmithing, but I tried to just make it flow and be a little more organized through the process. So at this point, I'd love feedback, or if you, or kind of, I just want to hear from you as far as how you want to go with this, because I'm happy to go section by section, or if you had like questions you wanted to ask first, or recommendations for changes. Yeah.
Under section B, photo protection. I know we had previously had a conversation about requiring this minimum covered entry. It doesn't seem to quite read like that to me yet, where all primary entrances need this covered entry.
Okay,
To me, it reads like if you're facing a street.
oh yeah, I meant to take that out. Sorry, I took out the other part that we talked about and I missed that, so that is on me. So I think the idea was, here, let me pick it up. Yeah.
Do you anticipate the possibility of the entry not facing the street? Just based on how it might fit on the lot, like a triplex, how they
Yeah,
fit on
they
the lot,
might not.
like that.
Yeah,
Because it says the covered pedestrian entry shall face the street on which the front yard setback is located, but I would imagine that that's not 100% of the time
yeah,
possible. I'm not sure exactly how to change that language, but
I
we
mean,
might even be able to just simplify it and just say all new dwellings require a minimum pedestrian entry of 4 feet by 3 feet, and just keep it super simple.
I like simple. I like that.
The way I read that, I mean, I guess that would solve it too, with people, it says for all new dwelling units facing the street, that's when it requires that to then. But it doesn't mean it's not required, it's not facing the street. I guess that's reading into it then.
Well, we have discussed requiring it no matter what for public safety, right? Just
And that can be, there's a lot of different forms of that too, right? It could be you have a massive eave and you cover your entry. It could be that you have, it's recessed in, and so that alcove, and I think this works for a lot of development, and it. With our weather and everything, it does help, and it adds to that, it not only is safer, but it also adds to its aesthetic too. It gives some dimension instead of a flat surface. So it kind of hits two things, which is cool. And I like the idea of taking that out, and then the second part isn't even necessary.
Meg, is this part of the push with this, with triplexes in R6s or R8s? Keep your thing about non-conforming lots. Can you define for me a non-conform, what's the typical?
So if you're in the RL6 zone, a non-conforming lot would be less than 6,000 square feet, less than 60 feet in width. Those are kind of
That's a non-conform, something less than 6.
something that doesn't meet the standards for that zone. So, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like RL6 Avenue. Yeah, like a lot of the lots that are like maybe only 30 feet wide and 3,500 square feet, those are non-conforming lots.
Okay,
Doesn't mean you can't build on them, it just makes, you build something smaller.
right.
So so with triplexes, the goal, this came out of our 2021 housing action plan. It was in 2 locations. That's something you should consider for just more housing variety. And now that we have, lot subdivision and other options for ownership, it was just, something that's been on the docket for quite a few years. And since we moved forward with the ADU allowance for 2, I think that's a big push is we allow 3 units now. So this is 3 units, but just in a different form. And so that's why we're looking at form code to look at, okay, what can we do for all residential structures and not just single out triplexes alone, but what can we do to make everything fit more with the community? So this is where we went, we did some outreach and tried to get some vibe checks from everyone on what do you like, what do you not like, what feels living worthy and what does not feel. And so we used some of that data. We looked at what other jurisdictions were doing and tried to make something simple that wouldn't add too much cost, but would add enough to make it feel like it fits more too.
I guess my question is, if you have a non-conforming lot that's less than 6,000, just don't build a triplex on it, build something small.
Yeah, this is for, this isn't in our non-conforming code. This has to do with just
Any building?
any building.
Okay,
So like a single family residence, this would apply to, a duplex, this would apply to, multi-family. We don't have any standards even in our multi-family code, so this now would give us a standard to minimum standards for development.
so when we say, I'm not whiz kid at code either, so.
No, that's what we're for.
Yeah, so if they try to build something and it doesn't work, we're still allowing them to encroach with administrative deviation like 20% of the setback. That's on 18 duplex, triplex dwellings, page,
Sorry.
yes, passage,
Oh, we're doing, yeah, we're reviewing like,
second set.
for example, we follow through like updates.
Sorry, these were just the updated based on live. You know, we
We're talking about this, right?
Yeah. So this is like, yeah, this is where it comes in, the deviation comes in.
So we're not changing anything with deviation in this code. That I'm aware of.
It's
So
always been there, 20% deviation's always been there.
that's for 80, is that for ADUs that convert? Are we looking at the same?
He's looking at 18.0.
36.045, the last page.
All right,
Section A.
I'm getting there, sorry.
Yeah, it's got like, there's two, both sides, yeah.
Oh, that's already in the code?
Yeah.
So this is just saying, if you have a non-conforming structure, sorry, now I see where you're going. If it's a legally established structure, so it was a garage that was legally established, or a house that was legally established, and they want to convert it into a triplex, right now, if it doesn't meet setbacks, it wouldn't be, you couldn't convert it.
Okay,
So this is saying that if you are within 20% of meeting the setback and the structure is already there, you're not expanding it, you're just changing that use, then you can get that deviation to be at that location. It doesn't mean you can build closer, it just means it's gonna be allowed at that footprint.
so that means that you can take the house, it's already there, and that's probably now, it's where it's supposed to be. But you want to make something bigger than a triplex, you're gonna be allowed a 20% deviation.
No, that's just it, so the way, and sorry, I need to reread this, because this isn't a change, it was just using the same standards we allow for duplexes for triplexes. Setbacks where the legally established structure, so it received a permit or it was historic before we had zoning regulations and it was approved at, let's say, oh, the house is 10 feet from the front property line and the current setback is 25. This is saying that if the existing structure doesn't meet the current setback, we'll allow it to become a triplex as long as it's within 20%, it meeting the 20%. That's how I read that. Like, I don't think we'd allow expansion, and we already have code for expansion of non-conforming use, and I think this is similar to what we allow for what we used to allow for ADUs, the same language is in here, but this needs to be cleaned up, I can totally clean that up. But before the state law changed, we had this same language for ADUs, so if they were within 20% of the required setback, we would allow them to convert. But if they were 30%, you know, if they were closer to the property lines than that 20%, then we would have. But that went away. The state law said that we needed to remove that, so that was removed from our ADU code. So I think that's where this is from. But if you want it to clear, I mean, I think this is already, I mean, if we wanted to make this clear, we could remove it from here and put it in our non-conforming code. Because I don't know that it really needs to be here.
I guess
It's been there historically and I didn't touch it.
Right. I just have
Yeah,
a question on putting bigger structures in. We've already changed to apply ADUs, duplexes, cottages, mobile homes. We've done this thing, gone our way. And from my perspective, we can stop. That's my perspective. We don't need to have every single, as tight as we can make it work for these things. If you're got a building there, I feel like given a lot of options and to allow something to get bigger when it's already that close, reading this right, just isn't.
Not clear.
Yeah, it's just necessary.
See, I think the safety stop here is this: conversions of existing structures. That starts the sentence. Conversion, so it's the existing structure. They're not saying building a bigger structure beyond the footprint or going taller. It's converting of an existing structure. So that's the catch-all that's gonna not allow what you're working on. Oh, right, so that building's already there. It's not gonna get bigger, not gonna expand. It's that existing structure.
Okay.
And that's pretty clear language as far as I'm concerned.
It's a conversion versus an expansion. So we already have code about expansions of non-conforming structures and uses in non-conforming code. I think this is just, they added this to add some flexibility when somebody has a historic structure that it maybe have good bones and they want to add additional housing and they don't have to tear it down, or like, it's just, this is what it is, it's already there. Change the use, as long as it's not, if it's too close to a property, this is giving some boundaries where if it's severely non-conforming on a property line, it's not gonna be allowed. But if it's within that 20% range, it would be allowed to convert.
Okay.
But
It's like allowing somebody to create a duplex out of their single family residence with attached garage.
Okay.
They have an existing attached garage, may not meet the side yard setback the way that our current regulations are, but it's legally established, you can convert that garage to another unit and create.
And you would allow,
Because the structure's already there and you're.
Right. okay. So it's not getting bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks.
you were explaining that better than I did.
Man, so you said you have need input from council on part B of that, and what kind of input are you looking for there? So it's whether the separate water sewer utility shall be required for each unit.
I
Yes.
added, so this was language the county asked us to include, because before, I don't have it, let's.
This is addressing those problems people are having out of the UGA where they
Yeah.
need denied permits because they need to bring water services in.
Yeah, so we tried to clarify that in this code because before it just said separate water and sewer utility shall be required for each unit. And so we added, as the planning commission, they added where city services are available. Because somebody can submit a request for availability, we can say no, not available, and then they have something in writing to take to the county and say, okay, it's not available. So this is required, but they didn't really, they thought that could still cause problems. So I was trying to just accept within the city's urban growth area. You need separate services, but it gets tricky then, because there are areas within the UGA that have sewer or water. But we already don't allow multiple structures and multiple units to. I think in Title 14, we already require duplexes and triplexes to have separate services.
But we don't for attached ADUs,
No.
if they're under 900 square feet.
And that's a separate code. This is just for duplexes and triplexes. So we fixed it in the ADU
Those
section.
actually look the same.
So we fixed it in the ADU section. And so I tried to use, in this version, I use the same language that we used in the ADU code. And so then it's the same, they've agreed that that language works for them. So that's what I have for you tonight is that change. Because I think if somebody is on like the city's water system and they're in the UGA, if they're coming in for building permit, they're gonna get a water availability form anyway, that they're gonna have to fill out from us. And they have to identify what they're building. And so if they're building a detached duplex, if they're building a triplex, we would say it's not available because you already have your water. This is how it come across our desks. So I think just accepting it outright, we're still gonna catch it on the end. They have to ask for water availability or sewer in the UGA. Or the original version, we spent like I think the most time on this one sentence, because we want to make it work for people and not cause confusion in the UGA. So our first version where city services are available, we thought.
So what was the problem with that?
The county didn't like that language,
What do they want to see?
more like what I have in front of each night. But
Is this wording that you have was problematic for you guys? If not, then I don't think that I don't have any input. If it's not problematic, then just leave it as that, because the biggest challenge I've had, this is, if anybody hasn't had friends or acquaintances that are having issues up there, is they've gone through serious conflict with the county who requires them to bring the water line all the way in from Ski or wherever it's available, or else they don't get the permit approved. And they've been on a well for years, and it's basically, it's a massive roadblock, and so if this solves that. And it doesn't cause any other problems for you guys, then.
Well, it's been a problem for about 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a problem.
It's been obnoxious.
Long-term goal, it would be great to update Title 14 and then just not have it anywhere here. But I wanted to, we need to have it somewhere right now, so.
If they don't see it, they're gonna fall back to say, you've got, it's gotta be available to you, or else you don't get your permit. That's what they've been
It
saying.
says where
Plain
city
as
services
day.
are, the way we wrote it was where city services are available. With the understanding that anyone can come to us and fill out a water availability form or a sewer availability form, and we can say yes or no. And then they have a piece of paper from the city that they can take to the county and say, look, I don't have water available, so this doesn't,
So I need a well. Yeah,
so I think the way it was originally drafted makes sense,
yeah.
But it's not to.
but it's,
the county.
I wanna.
This is why language is so important, because right now it's being interpreted by one person in the county incorrectly.
So if I want it to be very, very clear, and if we can get there with just this exception.
Yep.
Then I think we'll get there anyway, because we'll get that availability, and when we review it, and it's in the UGA, we can say, yes, it's available, or no, it's not. For your project, because it is project specific. So if you feel good with the language here. I would, my recommendation to just clarify everything and make it easy for people in the UGA would be to
Just exclude it.
exclude them from this section.
That's great. I have a question for you about section G. I think we had, when we were talking about this articulation and modulation. We were talking about requiring at least 2. But I think we also discussed that section D counted as one of the 2. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah,
Yes.
we talked about that. I ended up, and maybe I can change this back. My thought was, because this is only for the large, like 30-foot, like if we were gonna go with, we want covered front entries to be required regardless for safety, it shouldn't count for somebody who's building something massive toward their articulation and modulation, like everybody has to do that. This is specific to if you have a facade that's larger than 30 feet, you need to do 2 of these things. But if you want me to change that, because I found it confusing when it was.
Is it for any facade or just a facade facing your front?
It's really the front.
Yeah.
That's the most like clearly visible, so that when you, this is more of an aesthetic thing, right, the road. And this is for like, because right now we don't have any of this, even for a multifamily, there's no code, so somebody couldn't build a giant box. We have nothing, and so
like
we wanted,
West Woodland spots.
there's a lot of boxes. So this gives some requirements for that if they have a really long, like more than 30 feet wide structure. So this would only apply to those larger projects. I guess if you had a really big house, you might have to do some, but this is like bays or bunk outs or dormers, and there's things like. I think they're all attainable and not overly expensive.
And there's options,
It's giving on, and I
choose 2.
just 2, and I can add other forms of articulation or modulation as approved.
They could be creative.
If somebody came up with something that meets the intent of this.
Right.
Like that, and just because it's not listed, I wanted to give an option that they could post something, great.
Yeah.
But if you have, I can add that back in, I was like, if we're deciding that the covered front porches are for weather protection and they're required regardless, and they shouldn't, then.
I'm trying to think of like the non-standard examples, because we've got a couple of like undeveloped lots. Undeveloped larger lots, where it would be pretty easy to put a duplex on it, but they're deeper than they are wide. And so there's a higher probability of like a triplex running deep in and having the entries not facing the street, if that makes sense, and then parking this out in front or whatever. And so I'm trying to visualize like what would we put on, what would we want to see on the side of that triplex? So not the front of the
Right.
triplex, right? And what's gonna be,
So what
what's feasible? I mean, you're not gonna really put a balcony on the side of your house.
Right.
You're not gonna really put like a bay or a bump out on the side of your house. So I wanna make sure that these are attainable for people.
Yeah.
If they're not developing something that's street facing.
If that, I mean, the idea is to not have a long blank wall.
I mean, they can put shutters around windows, they'll have to have.
They will have to have glazing, so
Yeah.
there are options, and then, I mean. It can even be like changes in building material, like you've had, I don't know, we've seen where it's just not all the same siding, maybe they have a different. There's different forms, it's not just, it's the modulation and the articulation, and so I think there's enough combinations there that they could make something. And again, this is more of the aesthetic thing, and it's more for the bulk when things are very, a lot bigger. So to address that whole, and also. Yeah, giving some flexibility if they can meet the intent of there. Because I can't think of every little thing here that could be, and. They could come up with a great option. But I like the change in the building material is pretty easy. Yeah, they're not gonna be usable balcony. Maybe they recess, maybe just. And it would have to be larger than 3 feet there. But I'd be happy, that's why I'm looking for feedback, because they're all awesome questions and I really appreciate the time. Glad to have this time.
Other questions? Areas of interest?
Hey, just some positive feedback. I think there's so much potential and necessary ambiguity to it, because you don't want to lock people and say that they're not built the same way in our city. But I think you did a great job addressing that and making some reasonable requirements to achieve what we're hoping to have some aesthetic value to the construction. And so I like it, and I appreciate it.
I will relay that to the planning commission.
Anything else?
If you do think of anything, you can always email me. Do you feel like with this, and if I make the changes suggested tonight, you would feel comfortable scheduling at least a public hearing for this to hear from the public? Because I really like to get feedback there. And then I won't have an action item that same time. It'll just be a hearing. So you can discuss, ask for changes before this comes to you, if you want to look forward to that. Sound there?
Good.
Yeah. Thank you, I appreciate it. I was sharing.
Okay. Anybody got other items that they would like to see on the future? We've got a few minutes, but we can also take a break.
I had a question asked of me last night, Shane was there too. Do we have a plan for if ICE immigration tries to set up operation in one of our parking lots or anything like that? My understanding is that Spokane has apparently passed some resolutions for that, and I was asked, what do we have planned? And I said, I don't.
No, we haven't addressed it.
Is that something that the council administration feels like we should get ahead of, just in case, or are we not really big enough to be on that kind of radar?
I think we're gonna be on the radar, because they're taking, there's a small town in Wilder, Idaho. Got less than 1,700 people, right? Everyone's raised there. So I think it's a viable consideration.
We've had them spotted in town. I've never seen them pick someone up in town personally, but the vehicles are around. So, I mean, I'm definitely open. I wouldn't be out there if I wasn't.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure what I'm asking for. I'm mostly bringing up something that's asked of me that I don't understand what our options are. And personally, I think. It's the current iteration of ISO's the problem, it's not managing immigration, right? So, and how we address that would be with that in mind, the leading person. Is that something that we can ask the administration to look into what our options are? Are we interested in that as a council?
I'm interested, I think it's, you know, it doesn't matter if we go, so where we're gonna go with this, but I think it's worth the discussion, consider the options.
We could look, like, it's a model of what some others have done, right, bring those forward and study, have you discuss and see if there's anything that you like and what's other. That put forward.
The resolution prohibiting federal agencies from utilizing this full property. It was something like that, yeah, Spokane did. I think could definitely look into something, not positive I'll have anything ready for your next meeting, but. Put it on.
Okay.
For a while. Okay, that sounds good. Let's take a break and we'll be back for a regular meeting. Okay, on the Leavenworth City Council meeting for February 10th order, stand for the pledge of allegiance. And Zeke, sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call.
Clint Grant,
And Hesper.
Zeke Brewster, Mike Bedard.
And we have two that have asked for excused absence, Shane Bayer and Travis McMaster, so I entertain a motion. Second. Right, by Mike, seconded by Clint, all in favor, let me see your hand. Passes unanimously. We've got a consent agenda there, I would entertain a motion to approve it. Salute.
Second.
Moved by Clint, seconded by Ann. All those in favor, let me see your hand. Passes unanimously. Again, as we move into the other items for tonight, we're reminded to be respectful of each other, acknowledge that it's okay to disagree. Prior to making any comments, you must be recognized by the chair and address your comments to the council as a whole and not to individuals. Keep your comments focused on the topic that's being discussed unless it's during this comments from the public on items not on the agenda, which is what we go to next. So do we have anybody online? It's might be. Ron, you got anything? No? I know these guys are here for something on the agenda. So. All right. Then we will move on to our resolutions, ordinances, orders, and other business. Resolution 02-2026, updated council policy. Andrea.
So, this is what we discussed the last, meeting, so if you guys don't have any other questions or comments. All good.
Entertain a motion.
The Leavenworth City Council votes to approve resolution 02-2026, updated council policy, procedures and rules.
Second.
I'm seconded by Aaron. Any other questions? All those in favor, raise your hands. Passes unanimously. Resolution 03, Brantley.
Yes, at the last study session, we brought forth a procurement policy, the updated procurement policy. Unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of time to discuss it, but it's hopefully you've had time to look through it, but we're asking city council to approve the resolution 03-2026 to update the updated procurement policy. Essentially, well, the changes from the previous one were recommendations from the state auditor and some additional guidance that was provided by MRSC.
Majority is just getting us in alignment with state law.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Correct.
Motion to Leavenworth City Council moves to approve resolution 03-2006, which is the policy.
Moved by Rob, seconded by Leanne. All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously.
Thanks for cleaning that up. It's nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Nice work.
Next one, resolution 04, and that's our emergency management plan. So
Next, Mayor Council, tonight you're being asked to approve resolution 04-2026, which is the Chelan County Comprehensive Emergency Plan. This was recently updated by our partners at Chelan County Emergency Management and Jason Renfield, Stan Smoker here to answer any questions you may have.
questions for him?
Is there anything you fellas think that we
I can
should
give
know about? You can give us.
I can give you a brief description on it.
Stimulating reading. I've written 85.
It's always under a page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Page turn.
Yes, so the reason we're here is because we started the new cycle on the 5 years of the comprehensive emergency management plan. We're required by law as emergency management to have this plan in place. And we're fortunate to have Stan Smoke. Stan works on our plans and he knows them inside and out. Stan keeps these up to date yearly. Every year he goes through and makes some updates that are needed and submits those to the state in October. At the end of the 5 year cycle, it gets submitted to the state for review. And that happened, the state approved that in December. So last week we presented that to the Board of County Commissioners for the promulgation. They signed that. And as well as the implementation. And so now we're moving out to the cities. Schlub River Housing Annex in our plan. And we're looking for a signature from Mayor Flory on this plan.
Is this got to do with more like fires, flood? It doesn't necessarily focus like on Christmas traffic, right?
No, it's not specific to that. It's kind of a umbrella type thing that just basically it involves the NIMS, ICS, just defines everybody's roles in certain emergencies. It's just an overseeing document that you can use during any type of emergency.
Okay.
Yeah. Question, just question for you, is plan to exercise this, or there are plans to exercise this plan actually in the future with the county and neighboring cities and stuff like that?
So we do, we had talked about it before. I think at the end of our briefings on the Christmas lighting is bringing back another tabletop exercise out here this year before we do another Christmas lighting. We're going to be working with the city of Wenatchee and actually regionally on a big exercise in Wenatchee in March as well. So we try to get some.
Is that a wildfire one again?
That one's going to be a hazmat exercise.
I sit on that during my day job at Amtrak, so I'm part of them.
Oh, okay.
So it's really good to actually exercise. It's kind of like,
Exercise.
yeah, and it's a really good learning experiences. So it's just not like it's like county-wide, where all agencies get together and who takes speed and how we cooperate. So it's a great. So thank you. Appreciate it. You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Comprehensive.
Yeah.
Very comprehensive. I discovered that our packet was almost 800 pages.
Yeah. I didn't see it.
When you're glad you haven't on the computer.
Yes, I was just gonna ask me, like, reduce our packets to like 20 pages per item, whatever.
Andrea kindly asked me if I wanted the whole thing or just the front end. I said front end, so.
Yeah.
It's monthly.
I did that in the appendix. Yeah.
So, motion, the Logan City Council moves to approve resolution 04/2026, Chelan County Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, January 2026 revision, and authorize the mayor to sign the approval and the implementation. So,
Second.
Rob, seconded by Zeke.
nice work, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously. Okay, this next one is a belated resolution. What is it belated?
Just two.
Yeah, there's 2 meetings, resolution 05/2026. This, it goes back to my emergency declaration when we had our flooding and windstorm and all of that, and we made that declaration, but we need the council to then go back and confirm that, authorize that, so that we again could get FEMA funds. That's all the. That's why it's coming before you now.
I have one question.
Yeah.
I scoured that without going and referencing this state law that was referenced in it, but where's the limitations of, it's over now, but nothing on there said when it was over and what the dates, like when the storm happened, when the declaration was made, but how long is it good for?
That's a good question. Because obviously the emergency is passed.
I just don't want to give you carte blanche for the rest of
Yeah,
the
right.
years.
We're always receiving over you.
I gotta try to link it back to that storm.
I mean, it is a procedural thing that we need
Yeah.
in order for FEMA
Right.
to assist.
Yeah,
But he was just asking about Jim.
it was a good one. I'm not really actually worried about that. This is, yeah, I had that question. I looked through all the documents except for again, going state law or any of the records.
Not so sure we want an end, and this goes back to me and Brantley, who are working on all the follow-up with
claims.
the two different folks, and they're still claims
Yeah.
potentially. We're still finding our own potential little issues here and there, but we haven't even gotten on the invoices in yet. We were just talking about a recent rental for an excavator, and we haven't even seen that invoice yet. So, I got the light pole invoice today, but it was just a quote, so there's no tax included yet.
So obviously, the Elvis is the next is it relevant to this?
That's really where the
Yeah.
next attached to.
Yeah.
Right. Littleton City Council moves to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a professional service agreement. No. So
When I books, when I.
Actually, there's
It's not
no.
written in.
No motion.
You gotta write it yourself.
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
Motion to approve resolution 05/2026.
There you go, Rock.
Emergency declaration.
Emergency declaration.
Second.
So you said three shots tonight.
Clarify that that's coffee, please.
Yes, yeah, okay, yes. For the record, that was coffee.
We find something over there.
The record is coffee.
We moved by Rock, seconded by Mike. All in favor, let me see your hands. It passes unanimously. Now it's the professional service agreement, Brandon.
The city council is being asked to approve a professional service agreement with Ardora Group of Wenatchee for our 2026 on-call transportation engineering services. So we've used Ardora, this will be our third year now. Back in 2024, we selected them through our RFP process in which we use them for our on-call contractor to do basically transportation engineering for us. They've done a really good job and we're requesting to extend the contract an additional year. There's no cost associated with this extension. Essentially, every time, once we have a contract in place, anytime we get any small work or small engineering work, we'll reach out to them and develop a task authorization. At this point in time, we negotiate scope and the network.
Questions?
Leavenworth City Council moves to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with Ardura Group Inc. for 2026 on-call transportation.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Ian. Any other questions? All those in favor, let's see your hands. It passes unanimously. Janelle, some fleet vehicles.
Vehicles. All right, council, before you is our next recommendation for the top 5 replacements in our fleet for smaller vehicles. So Mayor Eaton, I'm sorry, Councilmember Eaton, former Mayor Eaton. You weren't here last year, but we did enter into an agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management for our 150s, 250s, 1500, 2500s, up to 30,000. So it's pretty much the middle of the road, mostly the street utility crew trucks.
And passenger vehicles.
And some passenger vehicles. None of our big equipment will run through this program, but the goal for us is to just start replacing so that we have all of them on a 5-year rotation. Because we have about 25 probably with a few new purchases that were made. So last year we had 4 brand new ones and 1 rotation, and then this year we're all 5 are rotations. Great question from Councilmember Bedard. He questioned, are we actually leasing these? Because you see the paperwork, it talks about leasing. Yes, we can. No, we're not. We're gonna pay for these outright, so we won't have the interest or any of those lease payments. And that is also what's filtering into the cost savings of almost $25,000 for us to just rotate today. They will work on the resale value, which we're estimating these 5 vehicles to be worth about $67,000. The purchase price itself is reduced by that amount. Are there any questions?
Appreciate the background consideration. I think the plan is great. Investing in our fleet is important for so appreciate that. Good background.
I have one question, it's probably getting down into the weeds, but the cost difference between the F-350 and the F-250 is kind of shocking. They're functioning very close. And I'm wondering, have we analyzed, do we need a one-ton truck for some reason? Or did we get it? After you said, after you say it takes $60,000. Probably not the right.
I told Bradley before this meeting, I said, you have to back me on.
I don't make them for a reason, right? They are necessity in some cases, but I'm not sure if that has been an consideration.
Without Rick here to tell us the need, I can tell you that the 350s are used as plow trucks, where your 150s and 250s are not.
Yeah. I recall that in the
They
past.
probably need that heavier vehicle to really get us around.
This is the one crane for the wastewater department.
Oh, no. This F-350 is in the street department. Not this one.
Okay, any other questions?
So I can't promise savings, but ultimately we will know once we actually receive it, we rotate, we give them these. If you remember from the presentation, most of the sales end up on dealerships, on lots. And so they do get sold to the public at some point.
And the reason why we're getting rid of these rigs like 2017, 2018. It's just, there's a calculus on, if I remember right, I don't know, formula after a certain many years. Is that weighted at all with mileage or just year based, or remember how that works?
They take quite a few things into consideration. When they gave us the whole list, which had about 20 of the vehicles on it, these 5 were the 5 that had the largest return on investment. If you do these now, you're in good shape. Where some of the other ones, they might be older than this or even newer than this. Based on their mileage, based on their usage, what type of vehicle it was, what kind of gas mileage they get, yeah. They do all those calculations. And they brought it to us, I'll tell you, it was.
But the idea being that we're still converting to this plan, this is our second, so over time. We'll get into a regular, and the idea is we'll be selling them off at their sweet spot. Right. Before they start losing.
Appreciate it.
Right. Yep.
And that's where we'll land, we'll go into the plan.
Yeah, and that's when we'll see the full benefits.
We'll just keep them until their warranty runs out and then get rid of them.
I was surprised to see that you were actually coming up on these 5 in particular. I'm surprised being consulted.
Okay,
7 years.
any other questions?
So we've got 2 motions tonight. We'll do the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, who wants me to start with my messages?
Yeah.
And I explained why
Anybody
I
wants to read VIN numbers?
Yeah, all right, this.
The boys will do number 2.
Avoid.
But we haven't covered that yet, right? Or do you wanna do?
No,
We're good.
unless you guys have more questions first, we're ready for both motions.
Just getting rid or adding, right?
What's?
So we're gonna do the second one first.
No.
All right. Leavenworth City Council moves to approve the purchase of 4 trucks and 1 EV sport utility vehicle for a total of approximately $211,500 as presented in the attached materials.
Moved by Clint, seconded by Ann. Any other questions? All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passed unanimously. Next, your surplus.
The Leavenworth City Council, here we go, moves to surplus the following vehicles. 2017 Ford F-350 regular cab 4x4 XL trim V8 VIN number 1FTRF3B as in boy 61HED 94468. 2018 Ford Escape VIN number 1FMCU9GE1 GUJUA 11058. 2017 Ford F-250 4x4 regular cab V8 VIN number 1FTBF2B65HED71111. 2019 Ford F-150 4x4 VIN number 1FTMF1B7KKC91460. And a 2015 Dodge Ram 1500 4x4 VIN number 3C6JR7DTXFG6075557 period.
Well done.
Second.
Robin, Chair Lundberg, read it. Question? on that?
Okay, you can have it.
Question, sorry, what was the third vehicle? Read it.
2017. Ford F-250.
All right.
You know how the sale process.
Smart out. All those in favor, let me see your hands. It passes unanimously.
Nice job, Clint. There you go.
I felt like it was in an optometrist office.
Yeah, that's a breath. That was a long breath.
Council reports, Clint,
No reports to give this time.
and
At the end of January, we had a special parking committee meeting, specifically just to discuss, the final details of multiple residential parking programs that we're rolling out, and we had our meeting so that we would be able to show that at the parking table at community engagement night, this last week. And, both of those are going to be implemented shortly. We were just giving the new information to the community, getting feedback from the community, on those new programs. One is for residents within the PRSA boundary to be able to park downtown a maximum 3 hours and pay $1 an hour. If you are a resident within that boundary, and the other is natural parking permits, with a monthly fee. And both of those things included positive feedback of community engagement. Communities sort of happy with our communities, but listening to the community's feedback and working on those programs. So now Shannon's going to be figuring out how to implement this, and then it's going to take a little bit of time, but there will be a little unnecessary. And I was at the engagement night, and it was great. I was there much longer than I had anticipated, but there were so many incredible booths and a lot of great interaction with the community. I enjoy our community nights, so I'm really glad to do those.
Alright. So I was also at the engagement night, same takeaway that Ann had. It was multiple booths, a lot of information there. It seems to be a way to engage the community on a very positive basis and get some feedback you'd never be able to access. So I just did about 6 different booths and got some great information, well worth my time. On the 5th and 3rd of this month, I went to the Chumstick Fire Resilience Coalition, and that was really well worth my time. I just figured I should know about that. got a presentation by Commissioner Smith about the storm damage, how they're dealing with that, where they could take it. Also, we covered someone like you did last night at Citizens Academy, that it's been significant damage to some Chumstick Highway since it's a detour for Highway 2, but one of the benefits have been that Wasatch, once they get the canyon open, that Wasatch is responsible for repairing the damage and actually have an extra state patrol up and down the canyon. It's a real benefit for speed. So that was, it was a plus out of that whole thing. That was that. Big item on the agenda that night was their resilience defense grant of $9.3 million. And essentially that had to do with fuel reduction and also purchasing 8 to 10 tanks that they're going to distribute throughout the drainage. And that's going to take a while, but there's a separate part that they got froze last spring. They got thawed, whatever you call it, and so they were able to. They've been able to purchase the tanks. They hold 20,000 gallons, but that money that they have, it's kind of a little breakout. They can only, that money's just to purchase the tanks. They got to come up with another way to install them. But they're going to put, I think, one is at the corner of Little Chumstick Road where you start climbing Beaver Hill. That's one of the placements. And they're working out different placements for it, but those 8 to 10 tanks are going to be a huge factor, especially given what the summer's looking like. So that was a huge win. The District 3 is going to be responsible for filling the tanks, so they're ready. And it was a multi-task agencies that went after that 9.3 million, which is pretty impressive. And they talked about where there's fuel breaks that are going in at Camp 12 Road, also on Beaver Hill. So it was a real informative session. I think they're once every 2 months. I'm not sure. That's the first one I went to, but it was free. It's worth your time, even if you live in the city. And then I attended I was an observer for the Citizens Academy last night, which was it was kind of fun to see this thing packed out with 20 people. Yeah, well done. Again, Sean Smith, County Commissioner came. We got our part of the presentation of our organization, and then Commissioner Smith did a pretty extensive review of the county's responsibilities and how they were divided up. So I think that the academy's off to a great start, and I'm glad I could participate. That's the end of my report.
Great, Mike. Yesterday, or I guess yesterday, we attended the District Plaza meeting led by Brantley, and it was always a great group of community members who are very passionate about what's going to be happening in our downtown revitalization. One thing that was a hot topic this time was just the massive amount of projects that are coming down the pipeline that are both exciting and people have been anticipating for a long time, like the parking garage, downtown garage, and also all of our infrastructure work is getting hot and heavy this summer. So a lot of how we're going to communicate and keep the public informed, and that is going to be, I think, a big task. Just because the numbers are scary, and especially you don't understand where the money's coming from or why we're spending that on a parking garage, but we aren't doing it over here. It's also a good opportunity to engage with the public. So good conversations. And that's all officially, but on a personal note, talking about emergency management, I just got cleared to volunteer with District 3, so I'm going to be responding to calls here in our community as soon as I get check boxes.
Just couldn't stay away.
Yeah. Sorry, but we don't want to see you then at that opportunity. Congratulations.
Yeah, Rob.
Two previous meetings that were reported by colleagues, the Civic Academy yesterday was a great start, so Selby and the staff is fantastic. I did have to leave for a ski field heritage foundation meeting last night, it was good, but I apologize, I missed the second half when commissioner, but the first half was great. And truly, I like to see the diversity of the folks that attended, it's great. And then, yeah, my colleague who attended the downtown streets, thank you. The engineer Bain for conducting that meeting, very informative, good discussion, and looking forward to continuing that process. That's all I got.
Great. Yeah, community engagement was also fun for me because I went to the dwelling place and found out they've just been inspected by the state, and they gave me tips of what they're looking for. Every year they have a different emphasis. So I learned something that I can apply in Cornerstone. At our community engagement night. Yeah, that was fun. So, my update is that we struck out again on moving, short-term rental tax forward. Yesterday it hadn't come out of the committee and didn't make it out. The second committee, but there's a little bit of glimmer of positive is there's still a bill that would allow us to increase the real estate tax, for housing. And that one is still alive. It would create a huge amount, but it would be something. That's a catch-all bill. It's really interesting. There's just a number of things within it. Some of it is also expanding the opportunity for that 1% sales tax that it would allow 0.1% sales tax for housing that would allow it to be expanded. The use of it currently have it, but it's restricted to very, very low. So they're looking at expanding the options for using that. If communities want to. So there's still a couple of little things that are alive that, yeah, just keep beating our heads against the wall. Selby.
Thanks, Mayor. Not much of a report. I was at Whistler last week, as some of you know, and what a phenomenal place. But I will say they claim to get 3 million visitors, which I believe. I mean, seeing how busy that ski resort is and how crowded that village is, and I'd come back here and think, do we really get the 3 million visitors that we claim to receive? Because I really don't.
Do they get a real around?
See it? Probably not. Yes, true. They probably get the big bunches in the winter and then bike park a little less. But yeah, to hear that we supposedly receive the same visitation as Whistler would be way I would have thought they would be like 5 or 6. But it was a great trip. I'm glad I went. Civics Academy launched last night, as you know. The next topic will be finance and records, and that'll be 2 weeks from last night. I call out to the committee for Parks and Public Works. If you guys could, I know we settled on a meeting time. It'll be the second Tuesday at 4:15. If folks could send us some potential agenda items so we could prepare, appreciate that. And also, we've usually had a retreat every year. Sometime in the spring. In 2022, it was a Friday in April. In 2023, it was a Friday in May. In 2024, we did 2, one in April and another one in November. And last year, we couldn't come to consensus on a date in the spring, so we used the second council meeting in August, which is normally canceled due to the block party to hold a goal setting session. So my question to the council is, do you want to have a retreat in 2026? If so, when would you like to have it? And can we get a consensus on, yes, we want it on a Friday, or no, we don't want it on a Friday, yes, we want it on a Saturday?
I want to retreat.
Okay.
Super useful.
Fridays for me.
Friday's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Friday's fine, but I'm not working.
Yeah,
And that's why we didn't have one last time, because I couldn't get a quorum to agree on the date.
Well,
Yeah.
the death notice on Friday would work for me, so.
All right, I will send out a Google poll for some Fridays in April and May and see if we can find a date.
Okay.
And then once we have a date, we can talk about what we want to accomplish.
That it?
That's.
Okay, check out.
Well, look, I have a brilliant idea this January. I do quarterly transfers and they start at the beginning of the quarters, not at the end of the quarter. So in January, I do my quarterly transfers. And one of the transfers to the pool is 25% of annual operation costs from the lodging tax fund to the pool fund for tourists. So I said, hey, why don't we just do this whole transfer? It'll give me the cash I need, it'll give me the flow I need. So I went ahead and did it, and I'm sitting on 83,000 in the pool fund. Now, of course, if we don't operate, I have to return that money, but we should operate just fine. So I anticipate that should get me through till May, when property taxes start coming in. So I may not give you any more updates on the pool unless I actually do have to do an interfund loan. Brantley did come to me last week and questioned me on whether he has the flexibility to go and buy a $25,000 pump. Just to make sure that the existing pump that is on its last legs doesn't fail on us during opening. I said, sure, and this pump would be something that could be repurposed down the line to a new pool, so it's not like we're putting money into capital that is just going down the tubes to fix band-aids. It's money well spent that will continue to be used with this pool or a future different pool. So that's about it for the pool. The finance committee, we did lock in. We will be meeting the third Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. March through November. And I will send out the first meeting agenda packet to everybody about a week in advance.
All right, I just have a few quick updates. I did attend the Chelan County Boundary Review Board meeting on January 28th for the Wilton and Bleecker annexation. That was denied. And there were some changes that were requested by WashDOT, and it created some concerns with the irregular boundaries. So it was recommended that they talk with some of their neighbors and try to get one that would create a less irregular boundary. So I relayed that to the.
We don't have a pocket of county
Right, in the middle of it, yeah.
at the intersection.
Yeah.
So
Really?
So that was that happened. Community engagement night was really awesome. We had our consultants there, Mandy, for the climate element. Got a lot of positive feedback and talked about a lot of other things other than the elements, but always fun. Planning Commission, we met last week. We talked about the CUP criteria. The next few months are going to be deep dives into each of the individual elements. So we probably won't make much headway on that until late summer. But we are moving that forward. The Build It Together RFI went back out last week, and we did receive one application so far. So that's pretty exciting. And as far as our department, La Quinta has a temp occupancy. I didn't know if I had already shared that. The chamber building is receiving occupancy this week. Building N of the apartments, that's 36 additional units, will be receiving temp occupancy this week. And the CUP for the PUD substation improvements off of Chumstick and Alpensee just finished its comment period. We did receive quite a few comments. The PUD is going to be responding to those and then hosting a community meeting to address some of those concerns ahead of the public hearing meeting. And that is all I have for you.
Great. Bradley.
Chantel and I covered the utility rate increase table at the community engagement night. Actually, it was actually really pleasant. I mean, most people were really supportive. And I think we had the big map of all the water line leaks that we've had in the city over the last 5 years. And I had several people, as soon as they saw that map, they were like, oh, I understand now. So it was actually, I thought it turned out really well. Next thing I want to at the community engagement night, for those who were there was a really big following of the parking garage. A lot of people showed a lot of interest in selecting different sites and of the parking garage. And speaking of, that consultant will be at the next council meeting to give the council a presentation, on the latest and greatest parking garage. And in addition, at the same council meeting, Somas, who are working on the Front Street Plaza, will be here as well to give you a presentation. So it's pretty exciting stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks. And that's pretty much it for me.
You forgot to say that Andy got her baby. Andy had
I've got videos.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Wow.
That same week, they were on that council meeting, you know, so.
She's so little baby.
Brantley's the man on top right now. The buck stops with Brantley in public works.
What I can do.
We're taking the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? It's passed unanimously.
That would be a good meeting.